This is Fitness Blender's 6-pack abs workout. In this workout, we're going to do a short 3-minute warm-up followed by 17 minutes of a plank progression, a core routine, and then another plank progression to really get those core muscles really nice and tired. Now, though you don't necessarily need any equipment for this routine, an exercise mat and a medicine ball will come in handy. Alright, let's go and get started with our warm-up and get this workout underway. Our first exercise is going to be a standing crisscross crunch. Nice and slow, bring your left elbow down to your right knee and right elbow down to your left knee, just crossing back and forth, leaning forward over. It's not so much about bringing that knee up really, really high. It's about crunching those shoulders forward down towards that knee. So you just want to kind of meet halfway in between. Nice slow rotation. Try to get those shoulders to rotate left to right as much as you possibly can the entire time you're doing this. And we're almost done, just a few more seconds. We're going to switch to a high knee with a torso rotation next. So keep that torso straight up and down. It's almost the same exact motion, but instead of crunching down forward trying to rotate, you're keeping your torso straight up and down. Nice full range of motion, twisting your shoulders back and forth from left and right, driving those knees up a little bit higher. Now keep in mind this is a warm-up, so you don't want to really worry about pushing yourself too hard. You want to just slowly focus on trying to get a little bit more range of motion with every single repetition, trying to make sure you're getting those muscles warmed up, those joints a little bit more range of motion, and trying to push a little bit more blood around your system. Now let's go ahead and get started with our next exercise, the full body torso circle. Start with those hands directly above your head. Nice and slow, tip over forward from that torso. You want to bend from the base of that rib cage to the crest of that hip. Keep those hips straight up and down the entire time. So start by leaning forward, then off to the left, stretching back behind you, then off to the right, then back down in front, and then reverse that direction, back around the opposite direction. Nice, slow, controlled motion, getting a good stretch around that torso. All right, we're almost done. And let it relax, switch to that toe touch kick. Those hands are going to come straight out in front of your body as you kick that leg up, stretching forward, kind of crunching forward a little bit. Warm those abs up as well as stretching that lower back and that hamstring. Just alternate legs back and forth every single time. And we are almost done. We have just about 10 seconds left. Just keep that kick going, stretching down towards that toe, getting a good stretch on that lower back and that hamstring especially. Almost done. And let it relax. Alright, that was the end of our warm-up, so we're going to start off with our regular part of our routine, starting with the plank progression, the first part, which is 30 seconds per exercise. Our first exercise is going to be just a traditional static plank. Alright, go ahead and get ready. And bring those hips up, nice straight line from that ankle all the way to that shoulder. Just keep those shoulders pressed down away from you like you're pushing those elbows down into the mat. Just hold it nice and steady. Don't let those hips sag and don't let those hips kick up in the air. You want a nice straight line from ankle to shoulder. If you can't quite hold it here, you can always do a half plank, which is off of those knees. Almost done, just a little under 10 seconds left. Just keep it going nice and steady. And just 5 seconds left, keep it going. And let it relax. All right, let's go ahead and switch on to the next one. This plank is going to be on your left side. So a static plank on your left side. That left elbow down on the ground, same thing, trying to keep a nice straight line from that ankle all the way up to that shoulder. Trying to let those hips dip down towards the ground. You want to hold it just nice and steady. Make sure those shoulders are perpendicular to the ground. You don't want to let those shoulders lean forward, that chest lean forward towards the ground. You don't want to let those hips lean forward. You want them perpendicular to the ground as well. Just a few more seconds left. Almost done. Just 5 seconds. And let it relax. All right, let's go ahead and switch sides. So we can do the same exact motion, this time on the right. So flip over onto the right side. That right elbow is directly underneath that shoulder. And bring those hips up. Nice static position. Straight line from that shoulder all the way down to that ankle. Remember, keeping those hips and those shoulders perpendicular to the ground. Don't let them lean forward. Don't let those hips lean forward, that chest lean forward so they're pointing down towards the ground. And we are almost done. Keep holding it. Remember, keep those hips up nice and high. Straight line from that ankle to that shoulder. 5 seconds left. And let it relax. All right, go ahead and drop it down. We have one more plank to do. This is going to be a supine plank. So those elbows, again, underneath those shoulders. You're going to try to bring those hips up, facing up instead of facing down. So get a nice straight line from ankle to shoulder again. Try to keep those hips up as best you can. This is a really awkward feeling plank. It doesn't feel like you can really get a full range of motion on this to bring yourself up to a full plank position, but don't worry, you can get there. Nice straight line through that body, just hold it. Now this one's not going to work those abs quite as much. You're going to feel it much more in your lower back and those butt muscles than you are those abdominal muscles, but don't worry, they're going to be working a little bit as well for overall stabilization. We're almost done, just a few seconds left. And let it relax. All right, good job. That is the end of our plank progression for the first round. But before we get to round number 2, we're going to do 2 rounds of the core progression, starting with round number 1. All right, let's go ahead and get ready. Our first exercise is going to be a slow crunch with 5 pulls at the top of every repetition, doing 10 repetitions total. And start up. This is just a nice slow crunch, so bring those shoulder blades up off the ground, nice tight squeeze, hands behind your head, only there for a little tiny bit of support. You don't want to be pulling on that head, you want to just have those fingertips just barely touching the back of your head. Crunch it up really nice and tight at the very top of that range of motion, and then do 5 pulses at the very top of that range of motion. Then slowly let it back down. Don't let those shoulder blades completely touch the ground. Don't let those abdominal muscles ever completely relax, and then come right back up again. Now remember, if you let those shoulder blades completely touch down and those abdominal muscles completely relax, you're completely defeating the purpose of this exercise. You're actually going to let those abdominal muscles release, and it's not going to be anywhere near as hard. So make sure every single time you lay those shoulder blades down close to the ground that those abdominal muscles always stay nice and tight. We're almost done. Just have one more repetition. Crunch up nice and tight. Short pulse to the top of that range of motion. And let it relax. All right, let's go and move on to the next exercise, which is going to be a Russian twist. You can do this with or without that medicine ball. Get that back really nice and flat. Hands straight up in front of that chest and rotate left to right as far as you possibly can. Getting a good rotation on there. You want to feel this through those abdominal muscles as well as that lower back for having to stabilize, keeping that back nice and flat. And you want to feel it in those obliques as you rotate left and right. So just body weight, you're probably not going to feel it that much. But if you start using weight, either like a small dumbbell or a small medicine ball, it'll start getting it harder and harder. All right, let's go and move on to the next, the reverse crunches. Those hands flat down against the ground, those feet up off the ground, pulling those hips up off the ground, trying to keep those shoulder blades down. Nice and slow, lift those hips up, trying to feel like you're crunching those hips up towards your shoulders. You want to feel like you're kind of folding in half a little bit. This is a great exercise to activate that lower portion of those abdominal muscles, get a little bit more range of motion out of it. We're almost done, just a few more repetitions, just keep it going, and let it relax. All right, we're going to move on to the next exercise, the side plank crisscross crunch, starting on that left side first. Come up into that side plank position, but keep that left leg, that bottom leg, up off the ground a little bit. Now, just like a regular crisscross crunch, you're going to bring your right elbow down to your left knee, but we're just going to be doing that same side, repeating over and over again because of the way we're holding your body here. So just keep that motion going, trying to get your right elbow all the way down to the outside of that right knee. Go ahead and tuck that knee up as high as you can instead of stopping just in front of that hip. All right, we're going to switch you over to the other side. We're going to do the same thing on that right side. So go ahead and come up on that right elbow. That left foot, that right foot you want up off the ground, crunching that left elbow down to that right knee. Squeeze it down nice and tight. Try to get those shoulders to crunch down and forward at the same time as pulling that knee up as high as you possibly can. You should feel this in those obliques as well as those abdominal muscles. It is a really weird exercise for those abdominal muscles to have to do, so it's really, really effective at getting those muscles to contract. All right, so we're going to move on to the next exercise, which is a ball crossover crunch. Place that medicine ball up in those hands, stretch it out, nice full extension. Slowly you're going to bring those hands up over top of those shoulders while simultaneously bring those legs up over top of those hips, and then crunch up and place that medicine ball in between those feet. Squeeze that medicine ball with those feet and then slowly drop that medicine ball down to the ground in between those feet before you come back up, switching it back into those hands. Just keep switching it back and forth, nice slow controlled motion, trying to keep that lower back flat against that ground the entire time. Nice controlled motion, trying to get those legs as straight as you can, squeezing on that ball as tight as possible. Now I'm using a medicine ball here, which is the advanced version of this exercise. If you need to, you can always use no weight at all, or start with something a lot lighter to get you used to the motion like a basketball or a volleyball. That was your last repetition right there, so let's go ahead and get set up for that next exercise, our last one on this progression, which is a windshield wiper. So set that mat up, lay flat on your back. You want those legs directly above that hip. Both squeeze together nice and tight, shoulders flat against the ground, hands out flat against the ground as well, as wide as possible. Nice and slow, rotate those legs left to right as far as you can control. You want to try to get them as close to the ground as you can without letting that shoulder lift up and being able to have the strength to get those legs back up over top of those hips. Now, if this is just way too hard for you, then go ahead and bend those knees to a 90-degree angle and then do that same exact motion, rocking those legs back and forth. Basically, bending those knees is going to cut that leverage in half, make it half as difficult to rock back and forth. Just make sure you start extending those legs back out as you can to make it just a little bit harder until you can get back to that full version. We're almost done. And let it relax. All right, that was the end of round number 1, so pause it here if you need a little extra rest. Otherwise, we're going to start back into round number 2 in just a second. All right, let's go ahead and get started with round number 2. Same exact exercises, starting back over with a slow crunch with a 5 pulse at the top. And start them up. Remember, nice tight squeeze all the way up the top of that crunch, 5 pulses at the very top of that range of motion, then slowly back down. Remember, don't let those abdominal muscles release. You want to constantly keep them contracted and make sure you're not yanking on your head with those hands. You want to make sure that those elbows are outside of your field of vision. So as those elbows start creeping in front of you, it's actually going to make this exercise a little bit easier. So make sure you keep those elbows really, really nice and wide. And again, make sure those abdominal muscles never, ever relax. You want to always have those abdominal muscles contracted, whether you're at the top of that range of motion or the bottom of that range of motion. And we are almost done. Just 2 more repetitions. Nice slow contractions. Squeeze those shoulders up. 5 pulses at the top. Just 1 more. 5 pulses. And let it relax. All right, good job. Let's go and get ready for our next exercise, the Russian twist. Again, if you want to make this a little bit harder for yourself, use extra weight. Otherwise, just body weight. Nice flat back. Lean back as far as is comfortable, as far as you can control with those legs. Rotating back and forth with those shoulders as far as you possibly can. Get as much rotation as possible. Keeping those abdominal muscles nice and tight, that lower back nice and tight, and make sure those obliques are doing all the work rotating back and forth. And there's your last one right there. Go ahead and let it relax. Let's get ready for that next exercise, the reverse crunch. So lay flat on your back, hands down flat on the mat. Go ahead and bring those legs up to about a tabletop position and then crunch those hips up towards those shoulders, getting a nice tight squeeze every single time, feeling like you're trying to fold in half, rolling up from those hips rather than crunching forward with those shoulders. You want to try to get as much range of motion out of this as you can, as much contraction as you can. This is a really good one, like I said before, for focusing on those lower abdominal muscles as far as getting a good range of motion through those lower abs. And that's your last one. Go ahead and let it completely relax. Go ahead and move on to the next exercise, which is going to be a side plank crisscross crunch, starting on your left side. Left elbow down, right foot down. That left foot's going to come up off the ground, crunching that right elbow down to that left knee as you bring that left knee up nice and high. It's a tight crunch every single time, pulling that shoulder down forward at the same time as constantly keeping up in that side plank position. Now we're almost done. 1 more. And let it relax. All right, go ahead and drop it down. Switch over to the right side. Same exact exercise, just doing it on the right. So go ahead and come up onto that right elbow and left foot. That right foot should be up off the ground just a little bit. The left hand back behind your head, crunching forward. That left elbow comes down to the outside of that right knee. Nice tight crunch, rolling those shoulders forward, down towards that knee the entire time. Also check to make sure you're keeping those hips up really nice and high in that side plank. And that's our last one right there. Go ahead and let those hips drop back down. Let's get ready for that next exercise, the ball crossover crunch. Remember, bring that medicine ball up into your hands, straight out over top of your head. Get a nice full extension through that body. Flatten that lower back to the ground as best you can. Then bring those hands up over top of those shoulders while simultaneously bringing those legs up over top of those hips. Crunch up and place that medicine ball between those feet. Drop those legs down, those arms down, and then bring it right back up, transferring that ball back into those hands. Just keep it going, nice, slow, controlled motion. Try to keep that lower back pressed against that mat as tight as you can the entire time. Trying to get a nice full extension on those legs. Now remember, this is the hardest version, using a weighted medicine ball here. If you can't quite do this, either those inner thighs aren't strong enough to squeeze that ball or those abs aren't strong enough to bring those legs up, those hip flexors, then you can always start out with a volleyball or a basketball just to get used to the motion, or nothing at all. And that was your last one right there. So go ahead and let it completely relax. We're going to move on to our last exercise. Those windshield wipers. Laying flat on your back. Get those legs directly above those hips. Nice straight leg. Arms straight out to your sides. Try to keep those shoulder blades plastered to the ground. Shoulders nice and flat to the ground. Nice and slow. Rock those legs off to the side as far as you can control. Then slowly back over top of those hips and then off to the other side. Just keep rocking back and forth. Main thing is keep those shoulder blades plastered against the ground, flat against that mat. Now, like I said on the last round, if you want to make this a little bit easier, you can always bend those knees to a 90-degree angle, rotate those legs back and forth from that position, and then just slowly extend those legs out a little bit more as you can control it better as those abdominal muscles, those oblique muscles become stronger. The further those legs go out, the harder it's going to get, and then if you really want to make it difficult, you can always start adding weight in between those legs. All right, that was your last one. Go ahead and let it relax. And that was the end of our second core progression, which brings us to our second plank progression. We're doing this in reverse from the first one, and we're doubling the time. Our first one is going to be a supine plank. We're doing this for 60 seconds. So nice and slow, bring those hips up and freeze it. Nice straight line from ankle to shoulder. Elbows directly underneath that shoulder back behind you, and just hold it there as long as you possibly can. We're going for a full 60 seconds. Now there's a long time to hold this position, so as you get further along, those hips are going to want to start drooping on you more and more and more. So keep checking yourself, keep looking down the line of your body, making sure you're keeping a nice straight line from that ankle to that shoulder, making sure those hips are staying up really nice and high. Keep contracting that lower back, those glutes and that hamstring to pull those hips up. We're a little over halfway, just keep it going, breathing normally, just try to keep those lungs open, just don't hold your breath. And we're closing in on being done. We're almost there, just a few seconds left. 5 more. And let it relax. All right, we're going to switch over to that right side, that right plank. Go ahead and bring those hips up nice and high. All that weight on that right elbow, right underneath that shoulder. Again, nice straight line from that ankle all the way up to that shoulder. Try to keep those hips up off the ground. Try to keep a nice straight line through that body. Just hold it there, breathing normally. Again, try not to let those hips or shoulders tip forward. You want to keep them perpendicular to the ground. You don't want to let that chest lean forward so you're facing down towards the ground. You want to try to keep a nice straight line perpendicular to the ground. That's your halfway mark right there. Keep checking those hips. Make sure you're keeping them up. They're going to constantly be wanting to droop on you the entire time. Just keep running through that mental checklist. Check those hips, make sure they're nice and high, make sure you have a nice straight line to that body, make sure your lungs are open, you're breathing freely, never holding your breath. Check it one more time, we're almost done, just 5 seconds left. And let it relax. All right, good job. Let's go ahead and roll it over onto the other side. We're going to do that side plank again, this time on the left. All right, go ahead and bring those hips up. Nice straight line through that body. Start doing that mental checklist, making sure those hips are high. Make sure you have a nice straight line from that ankle to that shoulder. Making sure that those shoulders and those hips are perpendicular to the ground. Making sure they don't start leaning forward, facing over towards the ground. And also make sure that you're not holding your breath. You're just breathing normally as best you can. Just keep it going. Nice, solid position. All right, that's our halfway point right there. Run through that mental checklist again. Keep those hips up nice and high, nice straight line through that body. Keep those hips and shoulders perpendicular to the ground. Keep those lungs open. Nice, normal breathing. Just keep checking yourself and make sure that body stays completely solid like you're a statue. All right, check that body. Keep those hips up. We are almost done. Just 5 seconds left. Keep holding it, nice solid position, and let it relax. All right, good job. We just have one plank left, the traditional plank, so you can come up on those elbows and toes and start it up. Nice straight line through that body from your ankle to your shoulder. Keep those hips in a nice straight line with the rest of that body. Don't let them kick up really high. Don't let them droop. You want to keep those abs nice and tight the entire time. Those obliques, that lower back, everything through that core should be solid. Those legs should be nice and contracted. That chest should be contracted, pushing those elbows down away from you. You just want to make sure that you're not letting those shoulders relax and sag so that chest sags down towards the ground. Just keep holding it nice and solid. That's already halfway right there. Just keep it going, breathing normally. Make sure you're not holding your breath. And there's 3/4 of the way through that right there. Go back through, check your body, make sure everything's nice and solid. We're almost done, under 10 seconds left. Keep those hips nice and level with the rest of your body, straight line from that ankle to that shoulder. And let it relax. All right, good job. This workout is complete. You just finished Fitness Blenders 6-pack abs workout.